Tokyo Olympic champion and breakout star Ahmed Hafnaoui has accepted a voluntary provisional suspension following a violation of anti-doping rules. So what exactly does that mean? For some background, Hafnaoui seemed to have been having some trouble with his training following a string of recent successes. He of course won gold in the 400 freestyle in Tokyo with a massive upset, winning the event from lane 8. In 2023, he had an incredible World Championships, winning both the 800 and 1500 freestyles as well as a narrow silver medal in the 400 free. Not only did he come home with 2 golds and a silver, but he also had some of the all-time fastest swims in his events. After these worlds, Hafnaoui would finally begin competition with the University of Indiana. He had been training there for 1 season prior, but had to sit out 1 year of NCAA competition due to an issue with academic eligibility from before his freshman year. Hafnaoui would compete for Indiana in exactly 2 dual meets, because after that he would actually move to California to begin training with the swim team. In an interview the day before the 2024 Doha World Championship started, Hafnaoui revealed that he was in the process of applying for a new visa so he could continue to live and train in California. For the 3 weeks before the start of these championships, Hafnaoui was apparently back home in Tunisia, and he would need a different kind of visa to return back to the US, as he was presumably formerly here on a student visa and he was no longer a student. This coaching change and visa situation was a point of concern for some fans that wanted him to replicate his performance from 2023, as it was incredibly exciting to watch, and many thought that this much change ahead of the Olympics would prove to be disastrous. And it was soon proven that many were right to be worried. In May, it was announced that Hafnaoui was dealing with an unknown injury and might not be able to compete in Paris, and then 2 months later in July, Hafnaoui was officially out of the meet. That was the last we'd heard from Hafnaoui until 2 major headlines started circulating this week. First, on December 5th, it was revealed that Hafnaoui had entered the NCAA transfer portal. This opened the door for his potential return to college competition, but any speculation about where he would end up was very short-lived, because the very next day on December 6th, the news of his suspension dropped. So let's take a look about what we currently know about this suspension. The first thing to make clear is what this suspension is actually for. This is a suspension for a violation of anti-doping rules, not a suspension for a positive test for a banned substance, which is a very important distinction to make. Hafnaoui's violation stems from 3 whereabouts failures within a 12-month span, which is grounds for suspension. These whereabouts failures could be a straight-up missed test, incorrectly updating his whereabouts, or failure to submit the quarterly forms at all. Athletes that are part of the regular testing pool must provide a daily 60-minute time slot where they will be available for testing, basically making sure that testers have a place where they can find you for random tests and don't come looking for you at your house when you're actually at practice or anything like that. It also needs to be specific in terms of how they can actually find you. For example, if you live in an apartment building and don't provide them your unit number, that would actually count as a violation. So this means that Hafnaoui either wasn't where he said he was going to be during that period 3 different times within a 12-month span, or he never submitted that information at all. SwimSwam reported that 2 of these failures came when he was still training in America, with the 3rd one coming once he was back home in Tunisia. If this is accurate, that could line up with the timeline for Hafnaoui's withdrawal from Paris, and very well could be the reason why he stepped out of the meet. These kinds of suspensions are not exceptionally uncommon. In May of this year, Canadian Olympian Ruslan Gaziev recorded 3 failures and was suspended. These failures stemmed from 2 missed tests and 1 filing error. Swimming Canada's CEO stated that, "We understand that Ruslan did not keep his whereabouts information fully up to date and therefore was not available for required testing." Or in 2022, when the most international swimmer Santo Condorelli was given an 18-month suspension for a whereabouts failure. This suspension was later lifted early, as Condorelli explained that there was a mistake in the filing as well as a communications error. There are a lot of different reasons that a whereabouts failure could be given, and since Hafnaoui's situation is so fresh, we don't have many details on this situation quite yet. That's another thing that's important to consider. Right now, this is a provisional suspension that Hafnaoui accepted voluntarily while the case is being investigated. A more official suspension would potentially be given at the end of that investigation. The case being actively ongoing is also why we have very little specific details other than the broad nature of the infractions. And that really is the biggest takeaway for me. Right now, we know that Ahmed Hafnaoui's been having some difficulties with a new training location as well as acquiring a different visa, and in that time accumulated 3 whereabouts failures that led to a provisional suspension. Anything beyond that is little more than speculation. Hopefully we learn more information soon, but for now we just need to let the system work through its regular process. I've seen some people asking if this investigation could lead to any of Hafnaoui's performances being disqualified. disqualified, and right now that seems incredibly unlikely, at least any of his Olympic and Worlds performances. The likely suspension, if the investigation decides to give him one, would be 1 to 2 years, and that would start the day of his third whereabouts failure, and if he had any results after that, they would be disqualified. But given what we know about the probable timeline of events, Hafnaoui doesn't seem to have competed in any meet since then. I'm hoping that this violation simply stems from some kind of simple filing error and nothing more serious, but if any more major news breaks, I'll be sure to let you know, and I'll see you next time.